Hey guys, Angelo. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. I wanted to make a quick video for a friend of mine in Amsterdam that sent me this image. It's sent in RAW, and he uses Lightroom, Photoshop, and the NIK Software suite, and I wanted to show him how I go about editing my photos if those are the only programs that I want to touch my image. So we're going to take this shot that is the RAW, and I'm going to show you how to make it look like that. So the first thing I do is, this is his RAW. I go into the develop module and I will level, fix dust spots, and add some lens adjustments, camera profile adjustments, and make sure that there's no chromatic aberration. Of note, I do not add any sharpening or noise reduction in Lightroom. Many times while screening an image, you'll see images that are inconsistently sharpened. Some areas are jagged, some areas are soft, or the whole photo is soft, or the whole photo is over-sharpened and jagged around the edges. I want to show you some ways to remedy that as well, and I'll do that at the end of this video. First thing we're going to do is take all the sharpening out, and let's add our profile correction, remove chromatic aberration, and have that box checked as well. Now we're going to go to the crop tool here, and we're going to use the leveling tool, and we're just going to go right across the gear because those pretty much have to be level, right? They're rolling down the runway. And with this particular image, I felt that a 16:9 crop would do better because I wouldn't have to snip off the end of the wing. It just looked more balanced to me. So 16:9, and let's open it up a little bit. So let's accept that. And now we're simply going to open the photo in Photoshop. Okay, we've got the photo open in Photoshop, and at this point, let me talk to you about strategies that I use for sharpening the final product. You have to look at your photo and what you intend to use it for. Is your photo going to be printed and also put on the web? Is it only going to be put on the web and not printed because maybe it was a zoomed shot where by the time you cropped it, you don't have enough image left to print, but you do have enough image left to post? Kind of depends where you want to go with this, what our next step is. I shoot the Nikon D810. The files are huge. I always downsize my file before I sharpen. Actually, before I do anything. So what I'll do is I will take this image. I think it's about 5,000 pixels across. It was shot with a Canon SLR. I don't know if it was a 70D or what, but I think it's a 24 megapixel sensor with a 300 2.8 lens. And you can see the image is 5100 across after I cropped it. I'm going to take this down to 3500. So now the next step that we're going to do is I'm going to pre-sharpen and add noise cancellation. I've tried it both ways. Some people say do noise first, do sharpening first. When you're pre-sharpening, remember what you're doing is the camera in RAW is not putting any sharpening on the image, unlike JPEG where it burns in whatever you have preset. So we need to put a little bit of sharpening into the image because most cameras have the optical low-pass filter, which is adding a little blur to the image, and we want to negate that blur before we get into the meat and potatoes of our edit. So I'm going to go to Filter, NIK, and RAW Pre-Sharpener. With RAW Pre-Sharpener, I find that I have more detailed corrections available versus Lightroom. Some people just use Lightroom luminance for noise and sharpening right there, and that's fine. I've done it for a long time too, but I wanted to get to know this RAW Pre-Sharpener, or I should say the NIK Sharpener Pro, because it's the one part of that collection that I really never learned how to use, or I should say didn't get adequate results from. So I took the time to do a little research on the internet, and I found some settings that work pretty decent. And what I'll do with a 3500 pixel image, I start off with about 45% adaptive, and I put this needle right about there. So I'm going to sharpen, not total edges, but not areas. You can see the before and the after. It's adding a little bit. Probably can see it better on this flag and the Malaysia. There you go. You can see the Malaysia lettering. It's just a little bit more defined. That's all we're looking for with pre-sharpener. Now, before we leave this, let's put a control point. These control points, it's pretty cool. What you can do is you can tell it where you don't want the sharpening. So we do not want the sharpening in the sky. So let's do that. Do we still have it on the plane? Yes, it's still there. Let's accept that, and we'll go to the next step, which is going to be our noise mitigation. Okay, we're going to use NIK Define 2.0, and usually when I open this, I just let it pick the arbitrary factory preset, and it does it 9 out of 10 times. It does a fine job. We can look in our midtones and our darker tones, and we can see that a lot of noise that was there is taken care of. So I'm going to hit OK and accept that. And now we're going to go to NIK Color Effects Pro, which is where we're going to add our contrast. We go to NIK Color Effects Pro. It'll create another layer. It's all very streamlined. It's all designed in a fashion that you could actually go back and put a layer mask on any of these. Okay guys, so now we're going to go for the creative aspect, or in this case, not really that creative. It's nothing more than contrast. I prefer to add contrast in Color Effects Pro because I've got more control over it than Photoshop. I guess maybe because I understand it more in here than I do in Photoshop. But I'll show you what I do in a very general sense. Tonal contrast, detail extractor, and bleach bypass. With a shot like this at sunset, I'm going to add a little brilliance and warmth to finish it up. So, how do we do it? First things first, add tonal contrast. These are my baseline settings, guys. You can use these, you can adjust them as you wish. But one thing you have to watch when you add contrast is these shadowed areas right here. You can see there's a shadow that was applied during the software's application of that tonal contrast that we need to get rid of. It's just like sharpening. You don't want to sharpen the background or the sky. A blue sky you don't need sharpening on. You don't need contrast on a drab or a blue sky either. So let's get rid of that by using a control point. Select the minus sign and drop a control point right there by the nose and increase the size of the circle to encapsulate the area. And now we've gotten rid of that shadow. It's gone. So next step, detail extractor. We'll add detail. Usually these are my baseline settings. I go around 20%. I go to fine, and I also put a minus control point near the nose or wherever that shadowed area might be, because I do not want detail in that area. And then finally, we're going to use bleach bypass. With bleach bypass, I'll slide the saturation back to 0. I will slide contrast all the way to the left to 20, and then local contrast is to your liking. If you bump it up a little bit, you get a little more contrast on the plane. I don't like to go too much, maybe 20%. And again, put a minus control point in that problematic shadowy area so that we can ensure that we don't have to deal with that later with layer masks. So last but not least, Brilliance and Warmth, because it was a sunset shot. And I try to not put that on the background of the sky. I think just on the plane this time. I think that looks better. So there you have it. Hit OK. Layer masks. If you don't know how to use them, start to get familiar with them. If you do know how to use them, I don't proclaim to be an expert. You probably know better ways than I do, but I do know how to at least employ them into my workflow to get the most out of them for me. And here's the way, hypothetically, let's just say we did not want our effect in the grass. Okay? Here's how you do it. This is your layer mask button. It puts a mask. It's not masking anything yet. They say white reveals and black conceals. Essentially, what we're going to do is paint away the effect. So this mask, because it's white, allows the effect to show through. We're going to grab an opposite color brush. We select B on our keyboard, and that selects the brush tool. Here's usually the brush I use, the top left one, and normal, 100% opacity, 100% flow to start with, because we want to get rid of the effect completely. And then this is critical right here. This is your foreground color and your background color. Make the color opposite of what you want to do. Remember, this mask is allowing everything to show through. If we want to erase or get rid of the effect, we want a black brush because black will conceal it. Now watch what happens if we wanted to paint out the grass. There you go. The effect is no longer there. I'm hitting Command Z to let that back in. But if you had a little area up here you needed to, get in close and fix, you could do that with this technique. Now, this also comes in handy for sharpening. Depending on what sharpening method you use, you can mask your sharpening and then only paint the sharpening where you want it. That way, if your sharpening has created all these jagged edges around this one particular spot, you can paint away the sharpening on that spot. Or if you want to take it one step further with the masks, if you hit Command I, it inverts it. So now it's black, so it conceals the effect. And we could select X on our keyboard, white is our foreground, 100%, and we could paint in just where we want all of our effect that we did in Color Efex Pro. Okay? So that's how that works. Lots more to learn about that, but it really does help in your workflow. So now we're at that critical juncture. This is how I do it. Up till now, what I've been doing is sharpening right here, saving into Lightroom, exporting from Lightroom at a different downsized size without doing any more sharpening, okay? And I've been getting okay results, depending on quality of the image I captured. I tried something new and I want to share it with you. It may work for you, it may not. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this image, okay? It's going to make, and I'm going to call this one 1400. Here's 1400, here's our original, which was 3500. Now with the original, I'm going to sharpen it, and I'll show you what we're going to do with that 1400 in a second. To sharpen, I'm going to use NIK Output Sharpener this time, and I'm just going to sharpen for screen, and let's see. This is my start point for a 3500 pixel image. 40% on adaptive, 41 on output, structure 10, 15, and 15. And take a look at the tail. You can look at before and after. Let's look to the right. That's the sharpened, that's not sharpened. Let's take a look at the flag. Looks pretty good. Looks like it needs it. How about the letters? Before, after. Now, this is my start point. I might need to bump it up a little. I might need to add a little bit more here or there. But this gets me where I need to be to at least start to look at it. So I'm just going to accept this as it is and get on to the next point, which was the downsized version, which we've not sharpened yet. So once I've got this, I then save it back into Lightroom. We're going to go over to our the duplicated image that's 1400, and the first thing we're going to do is resize it. We're going to resize it to 1400 pixels across. Now I'm going to give you a chance to see how I've got this set up, but I've got these three boxes checked, bicubic automatic, hit OK. And now let's zoom into 100%, and now we're going to sharpen. I find that I get better results sharpening when I do it this way. So I'm going to use NIK. I'm going to use NIK Output Sharpener. And my preset that I've been starting off with a 1400 sized image is output of 25, 10, 15, and 15. And that's my start point. So what I'll do is I'll put a push pin. I know that the trouble area is going to be these letters. So I'm going to put a push pin right there. And so now I can slide over and take a look and see what we got. I think it would take probably a little bit more sharpening and be okay. So I'm going to take each of these up just 5. Adaptive to 25. Structure up 5. Local contrast 5 or so. And 5. And let's have a look. Okay. I think that's looking even better. And the last thing we're going to do, let's remove that push pin and check one more area. Let's put the push pin by the landing gear so that we can come over here and have a look. I think that looks awesome. I really don't see that much in the way of edge haloing. We might have a little edge haloing to deal with. I'll show you how we do that. So hit OK. It saves it back into Photoshop. And now we're going to use the layer mask technique. We're going to add a mask. And in this case, I'm going to paint the sharpening where I want it. So what I want to do is invert this mask. Okay? And now there's no sharpening on the plane at all. Grab your brush, hit B, set your opacity to 100, and let me pull up my tools palette so you can see what I got going here. White's my foreground color, so I'm going to paint in the sharpening now, and I just go over the plane. I'm going to avoid the airline name and the registration and any small areas for now. And the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to come back with a lower opacity because I was getting some jagged edges there. So going around the plane, no sense in sharpening this black area, right? We don't want that sharpened. Let's go over the gear doors. Now granted, I am putting some sharpening on the that black because we have edge contrast. We want to. That's what sharpening basically is highlighting differences in contrast between lights and darks. It's looking for edges and it's accentuating that. So now let's sharpen the trees. Let's sharpen the control tower. Okay. And I know we got a little in the sky there, but it's not noticeable. Let's sharpen the grass. And here I'm going to zoom out and increase my diameter so I can make it a quick move there. All right. Looks good. Excellent. Okay, now let's zoom back into 100. And we know that if I go over this, boom, it's probably going to be jagged, and it is. So let's hit Command Z, and let's take 70% of our sharpening and put it there. There. It's not jagged, and it looks pretty good. Okay? We might be able to go to 80. Let's try 80 and just go right across it. One more time. I still think it looks good. So let's go with 80 for our trouble areas. And it looks okay. Let's say that you see another area that is jagged. Okay, let's just say that the flag's too jagged. How do we fix it? Here's how I do it. I will merge all of these layers into a new layer. I do that on my keyboard with Shift Option Command E. That's on a Mac. That'll make a new merged layer. I then add blur, Gaussian blur at 1 pixel to the whole image. I create a layer mask and I invert that mask. Now I grab my brush and I set my opacity at about 50%, 50 to 60. The mask is black, so in other words, it's hiding all the blur. We want to put a little bit of blur in some spots. So we pick a white brush. White is our foreground color. And we just paint troubled areas that always get a little bit of a edge halo. The flap right there, look at that, it's gone. You can try it over the flag, but I think it's too much blur. It's blurred the flag too much. So let's take our opacity down to 30%. And let's go over just the stripes on the flag. Okay, there you go. Let's go over these letters because they do look blurred to me. Now they look better. Or not blurred, but jagged. Maybe around the tires. It's not going to be as noticeable to 100% because remember we downsized the image, but we want it to look good when it gets displayed on a retina display at an Apple store and everybody starts going crazy about your image and they want to know who that photographer is so they can come buy your stuff. Now keep in mind, what's nice about that, you've got a 35 or 4000, whatever you downsize to, larger size, ready to go in Lightroom. I don't save into Lightroom this file. All I do at this point, I'm going to put a little blur right on that leading edge, get rid of that edge halo, and maybe on these slat gaps on the wing, because it's just put a little bit too much on there. You get the drift. That's how you handle that. At this point now, I will flatten the image and I will save for web, and I save it at the resolution that's 1400, and I'll name it like, wherever you're going to put it, 1400. Or whatever you want, just put 1400 in the name so you know this is your downsized file. Okay, we'll say 1400 AMS. Save, and get rid of it. Don't save it at this point, otherwise it'll go into Lightroom. We don't want that. So here we are in Lightroom. We have our nicely edited 3500 pixel one that you're going to print, right? And then on our desktop, we saved the one we're going to put on aviation photography websites. I hope the tutorial was helpful. There's probably something you can get out of it, whether it be the layer mask talk or how I downsize or whatever. But the whole goal is, I want to get your photography, number one, to where you're really happy with it. And number two, if you contribute to these online websites, ideally, I want you to just put a photo up and get it approved. I don't want you to have to deal with rejections and fixing this and that. So helping you with your workflow is my goal, and I hope